Please face me and raise your right hand. Do you solemnly state that the testimony you may give in the cause now pending before this court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Thank you. Please have a seat with the stand. Adjust the microphone so we can hear you, and for the record, say and spell your first and last name, please.
My name is Cori Hawk, Korihawk.
Proceed, please.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon.
Can you tell us how it is that you're employed, please?
I am currently employed with the Tennessee Bureau of Investigations in the Forensic Science Division.
Okay. What is forensic science?
Forensic science is utilizing science for the pursuit of justice.
Okay. And how long have you been employed there at the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation in the Forensic Science Division?
I have been there for 2 years now.
Prior to going to Tennessee, where were you employed?
I worked for the Los Angeles Police Department in their Forensic Science Division.
Is that sometimes referred to as the LAPD's crime lab?
Yes.
Okay. And what was your position at the crime lab for LAPD?
I was a criminalist in the Field Investigation Unit.
What is the Field Investigation Unit, or what does that particular section do?
The unit is the one that responds to the crime scenes in order to document and recover items of evidence of forensic value to be brought back to be tested forensically.
And approximately how many years were you so assigned?
In the Field Investigation Unit for 8 years.
All right. And you talked about going to crime scenes. What was your job when you would go to a crime scene?
Most of the time I would be the lead, and my job is to obtain a synopsis of why we would be responding. Then when I get there, do initial documentation of how we found the scene, and then identify items of evidence for forensic value, and then I would collect the items of evidence and keep them in protective custody until I could book them into our property division.
Approximately how many crime scenes would you say during the time you were assigned to the Field Investigation Unit did you go to?
Around 200.
And have you also testified previously as an expert with respect to the identification and collection of biological evidence as well as crime scene response?
Yes.
Okay. Prior to be assigned to the Field Investigation Unit, were you assigned to other units within LAPD's crime lab?
Yes, I worked for 2 years in the Narcotics Analysis Unit, and then I worked just over 2 years in the Serology DNA Unit as well.
So in the Serology DNA Unit, what was your job there?
I was a DNA technician by the time I left that unit.
So does that mean while you were assigned during those 2 years to the Serology DNA Unit that you were dealing with items of biological evidence that had in some cases been collected from a crime scene, such as what you were doing in FIU?
Correct.
All right. And tell us a little bit about your background, training, and experience that qualifies you, if you would.
I have my Bachelor's of Science in Cellular and Molecular Biology. I worked for 10 years in biopharmaceuticals doing cancer research. I did the 12 years with LAPD and in addition my 2 years with the TBI. During my training in the forensic discipline, I received internal and external training in all disciplines and was found competent. Some of the external trainings would be bloodstained pattern documentation, identification and collection of biological evidence, shooting incident reconstruction, other things of that nature. I've taken quite a few courses. And I'm also certified by the International Association of Identification for crime scene investigation.
Okay. And in terms of the training that you received, did you also receive specific training with respect to being able to identify and recognize perhaps biological samples and how to collect them?
Yes, both internal and external training on both of those.
And did you also receive training on service material and which services lend themselves to collection versus photography versus DNA versus, let's say, latent prints?
Yes.
All right. I want to direct your attention to the date of January 23rd of 2017 at about 9:40 at night, where you called out to a particular crime scene.
Yes.
And did you respond on that evening to the location of 5012 Queen Victoria Road in Woodland Hills in LA County?
Yes.
And at that location, did you spend several hours at that scene looking at, identifying, and collecting various items of biological evidence?
Yes.
While you were at the scene, did you also take simultaneous notes with respect to your observations as well as your identification and collection of various items of evidence?
Yes.
Start by showing you what's been previously marked as People's Exhibit 9, page 9, which you can see in the bottom left-hand corner. Do you recognize the location that you see here?
Yes.
And is this the location that you responded to on the night of January 23rd of 2017?
Yes.
Okay. When you responded to this particular location, did you speak to various individuals?
Yes.
And did you also, prior to your collection, have conversations with LAPD homicide detectives that were at that scene?
Yes.
Did you come by yourself to the location, or did you come with another person from the crime lab?
I arrived with my partner, Matthew Saucedo.
Okay. And was he your partner that was assigned to this crime scene with you?
Yes.
When you got to the location, were you briefed by detectives regarding their crime scene investigation up to that point?
Yes.
Were you also made aware that there was surveillance video in the area that was being collected?
Yes.
Were you also made aware that a vehicle from this location had been stolen in the course of the crime?
Yes.
That being a Porsche?
Correct.
Okay. When you came to the location that night, you said that you arrived at somewhere around 9:40 at night, so I'm assuming in January it was dark?
Yes.
And was the location lit in any particular manner when you arrived?
There was portable light units brought in for external searching.
Okay. Is that a standard procedure for when you go out to a crime scene such as this in order to provide sufficient lighting so that you're able to identify, let's say, potential biological evidence?
Yes.
All right. And were you also advised that the lighting at the location was off when first responders arrived on scene?
Yes.
Were you also advised in terms of what you subsequently did at this crime scene that the light panel or the breaker box had been turned off in the garage area?
Yes.
And were you also advised, again, with respect to what you subsequently did, that the those lights on that breaker box were turned back on by the first responder?
Yes.
Okay. Did you actually examine the circuit breaker box?
Yes.
Where was that?
Walking in from the garage, it was just to the right of the entry, or to the door that led into the kitchen from the garage.
Okay.
From the two-car side.
Okay. So if we're talking about the two-car side, we're talking about this this area here that would be behind the gate to the left of the home. Is that right?
Yes.
And next to the two-car garage, there's another single-car garage that we see here in this photograph that's been marked as People's Exhibit 9, page 9, correct?
Yes.
Okay. when you looked at that breaker box, did you make any determinations as to what, if anything, you were going to do?
It was a smooth surface, not a textured surface, so I left the breaker box switches for the latent print unit to process,
Okay.
as they had a better job or better opportunity to try and recover evidence.
And did you make some determinations based on your collections with the detectives at the scene regarding what you were going to collect and where from?
Yes. The criminalists that arrive, so me, I follow the evidence and I collect the evidence that I deem forensically relevant, and I communicate that with the detectives what I believe is of interest.
So as you're going through the scene, you are continually, as you're saying, updating or advising the detectives of what you're seeing and what you're collecting and why?
Yes.
All right. Now, in terms of the training that we talked about, did you also receive training with respect to what biological fluids might look like, let's say if they were diluted or transferred from one area to another onto a surface area?
Yes.
And did you also receive training regarding what biological fluids look like when they are, let's say, dripped onto a surface?
Yes.
Did you go through this entire home located at 5012 Queen Victoria?
Yes.
And did you notice when you went through the scene anything with respect to some sort of a trail?
Yes, there was a continuous pattern of red stains from garage, through the kitchen, back patio, back towards the front door, down a hallway, and into the master bedroom.
Okay. And so did you basically go about following that trail?
Yes.
And during the time that you were at the location, approximately how many samples did you collect?
I collected 43 items of evidence in total.
Okay. Did that include what appeared to be biological or blood stains?
Yes, it was collections of red stains, possible biological material that would happen from touching surfaces, 2 towels, 2 pillowcases, a bottle, and a pair of shoes.
Did you find anything in the upstairs area of this home that was of evidentiary significance or forensic value?
No.
So your collection was limited to the first level, is that right?
Correct.
Okay. And did you go about numbering the various items of evidence that you collected or collected samples from in a particular way?
Yes.
Tell us about that.
When I locate items of evidence, I place what we call a photo identification number adjacent to the item of evidence. And what this is it's just a numerical determination of what that item would be in for photography reference, and then in my notes there's a sketch, and then I also have an evidence log. So it's to associate that item of evidence with all subsequent documentation that I will be doing. So it's called a photo ID number, and they're yellow placards.
And are those referred to in the detailed notes that you took as PID numbers?
Correct.
I want to show you exhibit, what's been marked previously as Exhibit 7, page 4. And I'm going to turn it right side up for the moment. Do you recognize what you see here?
Yes.
And what is this?
This is a bird's eye view sketch of the home, the first level.
And who created this?
The actual outline sketch was done by my partner, Matthew Saucedo, but we both made notations on the sketch while we were processing the crime scene.
And is this a piece of paper that is pre-printed with the information that we see at the top left that you bring with you to crime scenes, or that you brought with you to crime scenes at the time, in order to make notations of the sort you're just talking about?
Yes.
Okay. And up on the top right, I see a series of numbers next to what says DR. What does that stand for?
That is the Division record. It's the number that is assigned to every case that is processed by the Los Angeles Police Department, and every case has its own unique identifier, and that is this case's identifier.
Okay. And so in terms of the items of evidence that we talked about that you collected at this scene when you were there for several hours, did you collect all of them and book them into LAPD property, as you were talking about a few moments ago, under this unique identifier?
Yes.
Okay. Does this box contain your writing?
Yes.
And is this actually your initials in the box?
Yes.
Okay. And if I flip this document sideways, does this lay out the various areas where you collected evidence from at the residence?
Yes.
And I note that in yellow highlighter, there appears to be numbers throughout this diagram. What do those stand for?
Those are the PIDs, so the photo identification numbers. That's how they are designated on the sketch.
Okay. And did you explain in your set of detailed notes next to the PID numbers what it was that you were collecting?
Yes.
And next to that, did you also include property item numbers?
Yes.
Were there times where the PID number did not match up to, let's say, a property ID number? In other words, you have a PID number of 6, but a property item, a booked item of evidence, as number 7.
Yes, it's very common.
Okay. And did you also, in your notes, identify what the relevant PID or photo ID number was next to the property ID number?
Yes.
Did you also indicate in your notes the date and time of collection of each of these particular samples?
Yes.
And while you were processing this scene and collecting items of evidence, were you working with a forensic photographer?
Yes.
And in what way?
In this case, I was working with forensic photographer Martinez, and I was directing her as to the sequence of photographs that we would want. In this case, we take what is called overalls to begin with, and that is to document the scene as we are walking into it. Then, once I have laid down my photo identification numbers, I directed her to take the pictures to put them into perspective, and then close-up pictures of the actual items of evidence. And again, this is just another stage of the documentation that we perform as we go through the crime scene.
So when you put down, you said your numbers, were your numbers, your PID numbers, a particular color?
Yeah, they're yellowish.
Okay. Were there other placards that you saw at the scene that had been placed prior to your arrival?
When I arrived in the garage, there was some white paper tent markers.
White paper tent markers, in other words, where someone would, let's say, take a piece of paper, fold it in half, and put it over something?
Yes.
Okay. And those had nothing to do with you and your collection, is that correct?
No.
Okay. No, that's not correct?
I mean, no, it had nothing to do with what I was doing.
Okay. All right. Is there a difference between the numbered placards that you placed at the scene and the lettered placards?
When I place a lettered placard, that is for evidence that I cannot remove from the scene. So say, in this case, there was possible shoe impressions and red stains. I can't take those impressions as a whole, so I would put a letter, and then we would do what's called one-to-one photography. It's comparative photography that makes sure that what I see at the crime scene can then be examined by the lab personnel photographically and have it be an exact replication. And then I would add, in the case of, say, one shoe impression was letter A, Well, I would want to take a sample of that red stain to see what the substance may have been in. So it would be A1, the number designation for what I can remove from the crime scene. So I would be removing a sample of that red stain.
So that it could be tested for DNA
Correct.
for a particular biological evidence.
Correct.
And if I show you what's been previously marked as People's Exhibit 7-3, do you recognize what you see here?
Yes.
And what is this?
This is a to-scale diagram of the scene. So the previous one, it's not to scale. It's what we do at the crime scene. Quick sketch just to make sure that we can put, recreate where the items of evidence may have been. This generated one is to scale. It's done in a software program. And at the time, this was done by our forensic architect.
At the lab.
Correct.
And did you work with the forensic architects at the lab in order to put this together to ensure that the information that's contained on this particular exhibit, which is People's 7, page 3, was consistent with your notes on 7-4?
Yes.
Okay. And does this document also contain, as we see here to the far right, a photo ID number in order of all of the items of evidence that you collected?
Yes.
And if they were next to it, we see what is a red dot, such as at the top here. What does that signify?
Those are the swabs with the red stains from the crime scene.
Okay. And if we have items that are not red but are black, what would that identify?
That's just a different item, like an actual item. So a towel, the shoes, the bottle.
Okay. I see on one down at the bottom, photo ID 21, you have down cap green.
Yes.
Okay. We'll talk about that. And can you tell us a little bit about, very briefly, how you go about the actual collection of items of evidence, of biological material?
In the case of the red stains, in order to pick it up, I would take a swab, which is, we should all know by now, the COVID test swabs, wet it with some sterile water, and I run that over the stain, and what that does is it transfers the stain onto the swab. I then package that into an envelope, allow it to dry, and then I book it into evidence. And I only collect one at a time, and I use a sterile swab.
And you also individually package each and every swab that you collect?
Yes.
And in terms of the packaging for each of those individual swabs, does the packaging itself also contain the unique DR number that we talked about?
Yes.
And is that so that a chain of custody can be established for each item that you collect?
Yes.
In addition to the DR number that we talked about in this case of 17-21-050194, is there also a unique laboratory number that applies to simultaneously also track all the evidence you collect?
Yes.
What is that?
So we have a program, it's the Laboratory Information Management System, and it is our internal database in order to track everything that we are doing for the cases. So in this case, it also has its own unique designation that is specifically used for laboratory purposes.
And is that sometimes referred to as a LIMS number?
Correct.
And the LIMS number in this case, was that 17-001339?
Yes.
And were you and your partner, Mr. Saucedo, responsible for transporting all the items of evidence back to the lab, or did somebody else do that?
Matthew took it back to the lab.
Okay. And once the items of evidence that you and Matthew collected were taken back to the lab, what is the process that happened with the samples then?
The samples are placed in a secured evidence containment where the key is maintained either by myself or my partner until I am able to package the evidence with tamper-proof tape. Once the evidence has been packaged with the transfer-proof tape, I then create a property report, and I am able to book those items of evidence into our property division.
Okay. And are those items of evidence, let's say if you were collecting something that was wet at the scene, like let's say blood, is there some procedure, standard procedure that you followed with those particular items?
I must wait for them to dry before I could book them into property to prevent any form of contaminant from happening. Say, if something is wet, you can have bacterial production that would affect DNA.
Bacteria eats away at DNA.
Correct.
So you would put them into some type of a drying cage, secure drying area in order to dry those items before you package them?
The swabs in the envelopes, there's, we call it a collar, and it's basically like a upside down cap, so the swab stays inside of it, and that stays in the envelope. And we don't remove that until the swab is dry, so it dries in that envelope, so it doesn't get any other sample with it. So each time that one of those swab envelopes are open, it's only one at a time, whereas if I were to put it in, say, a drying container, they would all be open at the same time.
Okay. And that's to prevent cross-contamination?
Yes.
All right. And in terms of your work in the DNA serology unit at the LAPD's crime lab, did you work with a DNA analyst by the name of Randy Zepeda?
Yes.
Okay. And were you aware that the items that you collected were sent to the DNA unit to Randy Zepeda for analysis?
After he processed them, I found out that he was the one who did it.
Okay. Now, where did you enter the scene through?
The garage.
Showing you what's been marked as People's Exhibit 7, page 15. Do you recognize what you see here?
Yes.
And is this the two-car area, the garage, that you were talking about before?
Yes.
And is this the location where you entered into the residence?
Yes.
When you entered, did you enter through the door that we see here where I'm pointing to? It looks like maybe next to some type of a black object that might be a trash can, through the open door right behind that?
Yes.
And in terms of the white items that we see on the ground in the garage, are those the white placards that you talked about previously?
Yes.
When you entered into the home through this door, what did that lead you to?
The kitchen.
And before entering the home, you said to the right of the door was the breaker box that you looked at.
Yes.
Showing you Exhibit 7, page 21. Do you recognize what you see here?
Yes.
What is that?
It is the breaker box.
Okay. And that's the area that you said you decided based on the surface area to leave for the latent print people.
Yes.
Okay. So that would be a different discipline, correct?
Yes.
Showing you People 7, page 20. Do you recognize what you see here?
Yes.
And what is this?
The door that is open toward the left of the image, I'm sorry, my left, that is the door to the kitchen, so the breaker box would be practically in the middle. And then to the right is a cabinet, and on top of that cabinet, that's the close-up image that you see, there's a bunch of like cables that are up there.
And did you inspect that area?
Yes.
And what did those cables appear to be?
It looked like where a surveillance system would be.
And were the cords that you see there just left unattached to any particular object?
Yes.
Showing you People 7, page 16, on the left photograph first, where we see this number 36, this yellow placard. Would that be a placard that you placed?
Yes.
Okay. And we know that because it's yellow?
Yes, and I remember putting it there.
Okay. And what was the purpose of this particular placard?
It was to identify a red stain that I would be collecting.
Okay. And is that the red stain that we see to the right, just underneath the placard 36?
Yes.
That I'm pointing to here.
Yes.
And you collected a swab from that area?
Yes.
Okay. Showing you People 7, page 17, looking at the two placards that we see in the photograph to the left, 37 and 38. Again, were those placards that you placed?
Yes. They each designate their own red stain.
And did you then take swabs from those areas as well?
Yes.
Showing you People's 7, number 18, or page 18, looking at the photograph to the left, does that show you the entrance from the garage into the kitchen area that you were referring to?
Yes.
And hanging down in the middle of the garage, we can see that there's another yellow placard. What did you use that placard to denote?
That placard is on the manual release for an automatic garage door opener. When the power is off to the house, you can't use an automatic garage door opener. So I swabbed that for possible touch DNA, because in order to get a vehicle out of the garage, the door has to be open. So I thought maybe somebody might have manually opened it.
This is back in 2017, right?
Yes.
Showing you the photograph to the right, does that appear to be a close-up of that manual release with your 39 yellow placard?
Yes.
Can you tell the jury what touch DNA is?
In general terms, it is when a person touches a surface, the oils and, from your hand then get transferred to the surface, much like a fingerprint. So the fingerprint and touch DNA, it's the same principle. If you think that a fingerprint's been left there, you have a chance of leaving touch DNA. Some people leave more than others, or if you tend to, touch your face more, you're going to leave more touch DNA behind.
Meaning skin cells, yes?
Yes.
When you got to this scene, before you even entered, were you advised that the victim was still at the scene on the patio?
Yes.
And did coroner personnel arrive on scene while you were in the process of collecting items of evidence?
Yes.
Exhibit 7, page 24. Do you recognize what's displayed? Let's start with the photo to the left.
Yes, that is the view from if you're standing in the kitchen, out that door into the two-car garage.
And did you find something of significance on the door itself?
Yes, right where that door latch is, there was what appeared to be red stains in a smeared pattern.
Okay. And is that where you placed your placard, the yellow 14 that we see in the photograph to the left?
Yes.
And if we look at the photograph to the right, a close-up, where we see that there appears to be a red stain, did this appear to be a red stain that was transferred?
It was possible that it was transferred, yes.
Consistent with?
Yes.
And so did you take a swab from that leading edge of the deadbolt there, of the door from the kitchen to the garage?
Yes.
Now, prior to the coroner personnel moving the body, did you collect some evidence from the patio area?
Yes.
And when you did that, was that initially around the body of the victim who was still at the scene?
Yes.
Showing you People's 8. Page 5. Do you recognize what you see here?
Yes.
And what is this?
That is the view from the backyard towards the house with the patio to the right.
Okay. And when we see this area that's blue, just through this open door, what area of the house would that be?
The kitchen.
And in terms of the patio area where you collected evidence from, where was that?
Where that yellow crime scene tape is, it was from that area.
inside that yellow taped off area?
That whole vicinity and from there towards the kitchen as well.
Okay. Showing you People's 8, page 6. Do you recognize what you see here?
Yes.
And what is this?
That is the view if you were standing adjacent to the home towards that patio area.
With the victim still at the scene leaning over or folded over on his knees on a chair?
Yes.
Okay. Again, with the yellow taped area you were talking about.
Yes.
Showing you People's 8, page 7. Do you recognize what you see here?
Yes.
And what is this?
That is a closer up picture of the patio, and you could still see the decedent's left hand in the image.
Okay. Showing you People's 8, page 9. What do we see here?
That is a close-up picture of the decedent from a different angle.
Okay. And did you collect evidence from this area?
Yes.
Showing you People's 8, page 8. Do you recognize what you see here?
Yes.
And what is the vantage point here?
That is from further back. It's from outside that yellow taped area. The previous image was from inside the yellow taped area.
And what about People's 8, page 10?
That is the view if your back was towards the kitchen, towards the rest of the backyard, to get that angle for where the decedent was in the position.
Again, we see that there appears to be a red substance resembling blood around the body. Is that the area from which you collected items of evidence?
Yes.
Moreover, in terms of the background behind the pool, we see that there is some type of a light source that's been set up. Was that brought in by the crime lab to light the scene?
Yes.
And was that done in order to assist you in your collection of evidence?
Yes.
Now, when you were at the scene, in terms of the area next to the victim, let me show you People's 8, page 11. Did you make any notations with respect to the fire pit itself?
When me and my partner arrived at the crime scene, that fire pit was still smoldering. So I checked through it to see if there may be some possible items of evidence in there, but I did not discover any.
Okay. And over here to the left of the victim and the left of that fire pit, right in front of this couch or chase area, we see that there is a yellow number 1 placard. What does that signify?
There's a red stain in front of it.
And is that what we see in the photograph to the far left?
Yes.
And is that an item of evidence or an area from which you collected the swab?
Yes.
I want to go back to People's 7, Exhibit 4 for a moment. With respect to the patio area, did you identify the location of the victim in a certain manner?
Yes, it's the X.
Okay. And that's what we see to the bottom right corner of this exhibit?
Yes.
Okay. And the yellow circled numbers that we see in the area around the X, are those the areas from which you collected potential bloodstains?
Yes, technically the number 2, Matt Saucedo collected, but I did the rest.
You were present when he did that?
Yes.
Now, you mentioned that the coroner personnel arrived while you were at the scene. Were you present when they moved the victim's body?
Yes.
Let me go back to People's 8. This is page 12, where we see this number 3 placard to the right, just near the the edge of the pool to the right of the victim and forward. Did you collect an item of evidence from this location as well?
Yes, a swab of the red stain.
And is that the red stain that we see just beneath your yellow photo ID number placard 3?
Yes.
Once the victim was moved by coroner personnel, were you present to observe what remained underneath where he was lying?
Yes.
Showing you Exhibit 8, page 18, what do we see here?
That is the area, you can see the 2 voids in that pool. That's where his knees were. And then on the cushion is where his upper body was resting. So it's the pools that were all around him.
In terms of the backyard area, we look at People's 8, page 5. Was the TV on when you arrived?
Yes.
Did you also search the area for footwear impression?
Yes.
And did you look at the bottom of the victim's feet?
Yes.
Showing you, again, People's 8, page 10. What, if anything, did you note with respect to the bottom of the victim's feet that was significant to your investigation at the scene?
There was no red stains on the soles of his shoes.
And what did that signify to you?
That if I were to find any footwear impressions in or any part of the crime scene, it could not have been his.
Showing you People's 7, page number 43. Do you recognize what you see here in these 2 photographs?
Yes.
And what is that?
They were shoes that were at the crime scene when I arrived, and the PID 6 is indicating a pair of brown boots that had red stains on the soles.
And were you informed at some point in time, in order to conduct your investigation, that these shoes belonged to one of the daughters?
Yes.
Okay. And what did you do with the shoes, given once you were told that?
I recovered them.
Okay. And they're just at the, just outside the door on the red and white mat, just outside the open kitchen door, is that right?
Yes.
Marked as People's 7, page 41. Do you recognize what you see here?
Yes, that is standing in the kitchen area, and it is the open door that leads to that back patio area.
And if we look at the door jamb area as depicted to the right photograph in People's 7, page 41, what did you notice in this area here?
There's a red stain there that, again, appeared to be possible transfer.
Okay. And if we were to look through the open door leading from the kitchen to the backyard, was there a particular item of evidence on the other side of this glass pane on the counter?
It was the decedent's cell phone.
Did you notice whether or not there was any red stains that led from the patio area around the back side of the pool?
No.
Did you notice if there were any red stains along the side of the house where the master bedroom and 2 other bedrooms were that lead around to the back side of the pool?
There were no red stains there.
So, in terms of the blood stain or the red stains that you recovered that resembled blood, were those stains consistent with the killer or killers entering the kitchen from the back patio after the murder, given where you observed the red blood stains?
In order for the red stains to appear where they were, the blood would have had to be present, so it had to be after the decedent was attacked.
And did you follow the red stains into the kitchen area?
Yes.
We spoke a moment ago about the decedent's cell phone, showing you People's 7, page 36. Again, as I mentioned, looking at the photograph to the left, does that appear to be within that circled area, the cell phone that we were talking about belonging to the decedent?
Yes.
Showing you the photograph to the right of that, again looking through a pane of glass, does that appear to be the decedent's cell phone?
Yes.
Okay. And did you also find stains that resembled blood around the kitchen sink area?
Yes.
Showing you People's 7, page 38. And let's start with the photograph to the top left. Did you place placards number 15 and 17?
Yes.
And what did those signify?
There was red stains on the faucet handle, which is 15, and then also what appeared to be possibly dilute red stains. That's on the basin of the sink, and that's 17.
Okay, so taking a look at the photograph on the bottom left corner of People's 7, page 38, is that the red stain that you're referring to with your placard number 15?
Yes.
And looking closer at the photograph to the right with placard number 17, where we see various, it looks like circles, is that what you're referring to in terms of diluted blood stains?
Yes.
And you took samples from those areas as well?
Yes.
Showing you People's 7, number, or page 37, starting again at the photograph on the left. What are we looking at here?
It is a further back image of that same kitchen sink. There's a placard on that blue towel that had red stains. The faucet handle is 15. The basin is 17. And then 20, there was red stains on a vinegar bottle that was left in the sink.
And in terms of that vinegar bottle, did that appear to be an empty vinegar bottle?
Yes.
And was there a top on the bottle?
There was no top while it was in the sink.
Did you find a top?
Yes.
Where was that?
In the dining room, so just outside the kitchen.
Looking at the 2 photographs to the right of People's 7, page 37, what do we see here starting with the photograph at the top?
PID 16 is the blue towel that was draped over the kitchen faucet. And then you can also see placard 17 in that same photo. And then the photo below that is the indicating the kitchen faucet handle and the basin.
Okay. And in terms of 16, when you put a placard on the towel, that was because you saw some stains perhaps on that towel that resembled blood as well?
Yes.
It's not a towel that's soaked in any particular manner in red, correct? It has maybe a couple of individual stains like what I'm pointing to here at the bottom of the blue towel. Is that right?
Yes.
Showing you People's 7, page 40, and looking at placard number 20, what is this indicating?
That's the vinegar bottle with the red stains.
So if we look at the photographs to the right, I'll look at the one at the bottom right of People 740. Are these the looks like diluted stains that you see, that we can see here in this photograph?
Yes.
And you took samples of those?
I took the bottle.
You took the bottle itself. Which means, given that you previously worked, again, in the DNA serology section, would that be an item of evidence that would be screened?
Yes.
Okay. What is the screening process?
To screen for something to be possible blood, it's a color test. You would transfer a small portion of the stain, add chemicals. If it turns bright pink, it's possibly blood. And then if it doesn't turn any color, then most likely it's not.
Okay. So you brought it back to the lab so that it could be screened for potential biological material such as blood?
Yes.
Based on a chemical test?
Yes.
Okay. Showing you Exhibit 7, People's 29. Do you recognize what you see here?
It's a picture of the other side of the kitchen from where we were previously focused.
Okay. So across from the door that leads to the back patio?
Correct.
Okay. And what in particular were you identifying with your number 12 placard here?
Red stain.
Okay. And is that on a drawer just below the monitor that we see here in the photograph to the left?
Yes.
And if we look up close at the photograph in the bottom right, is this the area from which you collected a swab?
Yes.
Appears to be some type of material that's dripped.
It was hard to tell based on the color. It was either dripped or transferred.
Okay. Back to the kitchen counter across from this island, looking at Exhibit 7, page 39. What do we see here?
That's another indicator for a red stain that was collected.
And is that the diluted stain that we see, red stain just below your 18 placard?
Yes.
Okay. Looking at Exhibit 7, page 32, starting at the photograph to the bottom left, where we see a number of yellow placards on the floor area. What do we see here?
Where you can see the letters, those are the possible shoe impressions and the red stains, and then where you see the numbers, it's red stains that were collected.
Okay, so where I'm pointing right now, is that a letter?
Yes.
Is that a B?
Yes.
And is that to identify the shoe prints and blood that you thought you saw?
It indicates one of them, so it's a letter per stain, and the rule of thumb is to get 2 of each type of pattern in hopes that you can piece enough together to get the entire shoe impression, because they're never perfect when you leave an impression.
So let me interrupt. Let's stretch. Come on. Actually, I'm not doing it for you. I'm doing it for me.
with the item number 10, what does that indicate?
There was a red stain that was recovered.
And if we go closer to also be another letter?
Yes.
And what letter is that?
A.
And what does that indicate?
That was another possible shoe impression and red staining.
And in terms of the item 9 placard, what did that indicate?
That was a red stain that I recovered.
And just beyond that, is there a placard number 19?
Yes.
Okay. And again, were those all areas from which you collected a sample?
Yes.
Looking to the right, 2 photographs in People 7, page 32, beneath the number 9 placard and beneath the number 10 placard are those the stains from which you collected swabs.
Yes.
Showing you People 7, page 33. Does that give us a close-up view of the areas we just talked about where there were blood stains that we saw next to placards 9 and 19?
Yes.
And is this the blood trail that you referred to earlier that led from the patio through the kitchen and around the island area?
Yes.
Showing you the photograph to the bottom right of People 7, number 33. What are we looking at here?
That's placard B, indicating a possible shoe impression and red staining.
And showing you People 7, page 25. Let's look at the photograph to the left first. Right at, before we get to the door, is this a placard with another letter?
Yes.
And what is that?
C.
And what does that indicate?
It's a possible shoe impression and red staining.
Showing you the photograph to the right. Is this a close-up of, well, let's see if it focuses itself. There it is. Does that depict that potential shoe impression in blood that you were referring to?
Yes.
From which you collected another stain?
Yes.
Okay. Showing you People 7, number 27. Photograph again to the bottom left. What do we see here?
That is photo identifier D.
Okay. And again, what is that?
That is a possible shoe impression and red staining.
And to the bottom right, next to the D, is that up close an enlargement of that potential shoe impression in blood that you collected from?
Yes.
Now, we talked about the empty vinegar bottle in the kitchen sink, showing you People's Exhibit 7, page 45. Where we see the tile in the kitchen floor meet the wood in the dining room, where we see a number 21 placard. What is that?
That is the cap, the green cap for the vinegar bottle.
If I could have a moment, Your Honor.
All right.
Did you find any red stains in the dining room area? That means on the wood floor area.
No.
How about in the living room area?
No.
Showing you People 7, page 46. Do you recognize the vantage
Yes.
And what is that?
If your back is to the kitchen, you're looking into the living room. So you're standing in the dining room, though.
Okay. So it's a long room with the dining room next to the dining table next to the kitchen area, and further down to the opposite direction would be the living room area.
Correct.
And you didn't find anything of significance forensically in that area of the house?
No.
We can see to the right of the photograph to the top left of People 7, page 46, that it appears that there are some stairs that are in the same type of tile, perhaps, that we saw in the kitchen area?
Yes.
Where did that lead you to?
The entryway, the main entrance.
Showing you the photograph to the right in People 7, page 46. Is this the entryway that leads to the open front door?
Yes.
Okay. Showing you Exhibit 7, page 49, the photograph to the top left. Did you lay down a couple more placards here?
Yes, 22 and 23.
And what did those identify?
They were red stains that I recovered.
Showing you the photographs to the right in People 7, page 49. Are those the red stains up close that you're referring to?
Yes.
Now, did this area near the front door, let's say to the left of the front door, lead to a particular room?
That leads to the hallway that branches off into the bedrooms.
Okay. So if you were to go down this hallway where the floor changes once again from the tile to wood, did that lead you into the master bedroom?
Yes.
Showing you People 7, page 53. Is this the doorway, one of the doorways leading to the master bedroom?
Yes.
And on the floor just outside of the carpeted area in the bedroom, did you place a placard number 26?
Yes.
Showing you the photograph to the bottom right, although it might be hard to see. What were you identifying here with number 26?
There was a red stain.
Again, another item that you collected from?
Yes.
Showing you People's 7, number 52. If you were to follow the 24 straight forward to the 26 that we looked at a moment ago, this would lead you, as you said, into the master bedroom. Is that right?
Yes.
However, if you were to go down the hallway the other direction, past this area where there appears to be some type of a white wood cabinet of sorts, we see a placard number 25.
Yes.
What did that identify?
There was a red stain on the closet door.
We show you the photograph to the right with the placard just beneath that door. Is this the stain that you swabbed?
Yes.
Okay. Showing you People 7, number 60. Let's start with the photograph to the left. What room is this in?
That's the master bedroom.
Okay. And was this the condition of the master bedroom when you arrived on scene?
Yes.
And did you place placards on the actual cabinet, door, and dresser as we see here in People 7, page 60?
Yes.
And was that the placard numbers 32 and 33?
Yes.
And if I show you the photograph to the bottom right, what do we see here in People's 32?
That is a red stain that was on the drawer that was recovered for evidence.
Once again, in looking at that particular stain and noting the trail from the patio area, was that consistent with blood that had been transferred from the victim or the patio area into the bedroom.
It is a possible transfer stain, yes.
Okay. Showing you people 7, page 59. Looking at placard 33. What did that identify?
That is a red stain that was recovered?
Okay. By you?
Yes.
Showing you people 7, number 56. Let's start with the photograph to the bottom, top left. Would this be the vantage point opposite what we were talking about before from the hallway looking into the bedroom, this time from the bedroom looking out into the hallway from the master?
Yes.
And again, was this the condition of the master as you found it?
Yes.
With the drawers open and the items strewn on the floor?
Yes.
Showing you the photograph to the bottom right of people 7, number 56 or page 56. I can see that there is a placard 27 on a cabinet door and a placard 29 on the floor. What did those items signify?
27 was a red stain and 29 was the bag. It had red stains on it.
Okay, and also on top of the counter, there appears to be another placard. What does that identify?
That's a red stain that I recovered.
Okay, on the counter area
Yes.
that we can see right below the placard,
Yes.
showing you people's 7, page 77. Again, looking at the overall photograph to the top left first. Looking at the placards 30 and 31 on this green bed. What did those identify?
The pillowcases had red stains on them, so I recovered the pillowcases.
Okay. And in looking at the photograph to the bottom right of people 7, page 77, was this a photograph that you had taken of the condition of the shutters over a sliding door?
Yes.
Showing you people 7, page 54. Is this a photograph taken from inside of the master bedroom?
Yes.
And did that appear? Does this photograph appear to lead into a walk-in closet?
Yes, it would be as if your back is to the bed. To the right, you see the hallway that would lead to the hallway. Straight ahead is the closet, and then to the left is the bathroom.
And if you were to go to the left, showing you people 7, page 55, the photograph to the top left, is that the master bathroom?
Yes.
And showing you the photograph to the bottom right, is that also a photograph inside the master bath?
Yes, if you're standing in the master bath, to the photo towards that hallway.
And what does the 34 identify?
There was a towel on the back of the door with a red stain. I recovered.
And if you were to be at the entering from the front door into the entryway of this home, as we see in people's 7, page 48, the photograph to the bottom right, this is, it looks like if you were to enter, in front of you would be the staircase that led upstairs.
Yes.
And you indicated there was no items of evidentiary value up there.
No.
But you looked around.
Yes.
It appeared to be undisturbed.
Correct.
Showing you photograph to the top left of 7, page 48. As you enter into the house, if you were to go to the left, what does this door lead to?
The garage.
And would that be to the one-car garage portion?
Yes.
Which led into the 2-car garage portion?
Yeah, there's no wall or anything in between them. It's all one big space.
In terms of the living room area that we spoke about a few moments ago, was there also a television in that living room area?
Yes.
Showing you Exhibit 7, page 46, the photograph to the top left. Was the TV on when you arrived?
Yes.
Did that include the sound?
I don't independently recollect if the sound was on.
If I could have a moment again, Your Honor.
Yes.
Did you find any rooms in the home that had been ransacked other than that master bedroom that we talked about?
No.
Room ransack? It's overruled.
No.
That appeared to be the only room that had been disturbed,
Yes.
where there were items strewn about,
Yes.
cabinets and drawers open. You didn't find that elsewhere?
Nope.
By the way, in the master bedroom, did you identify a location where there was a safe?
Yes.
And where was that located?
If you were to enter the master bedroom closet, just behind the door, so in the wall, it looked like a full-length mirror, but behind that mirror is a safe.
Did that appear to have did that appear to be untouched?
I did not see any red stains on it.
Did you find any red stains on the railing area leading upstairs?
No.
And I just want to make sure that I clarify, because I might have read this wrong. In terms of your set of notes, with respect to the divisional report number under which you booked all of your swabs, is this the correct number, 172105194?
Yes.
I have nothing further. Thank you.
Looks like we're having a recess for 15 minutes. The evidence applies. See you back here in 15 minutes. The record, P versus Sementilli, defendant is present. All counsel are present. Jury and also present. And Ms. Hawk is still under oath. Ms. Levine, you may inquire.
Thank you very much, Your Honor. Good afternoon, Ms. Hawk.
Good afternoon.
Let me ask you this. You examined an awful lot of evidence, biological evidence, blood and so forth. Is that correct?
Yes.
And were you able, did you do any comparisons at all, that is to match any of the evidence that you recovered with any known samples or other individuals to see if there was a match?
I didn't perform any of the analysis for what I recovered. That was up to people that were in the lab.
Okay.
So I didn't do any of that, no.
That's not your field of expertise, or is it?
To do the analysis?
Yes.
Not anymore.
Okay, at one time.
I am no longer competent in that field of forensics.
It's progressed quite a bit.
Yes.
Let me ask you this. What time did you arrive on the scene?
It would have been, I would have to refer to my notes to be more precise, but it was around 10 o'clock, somewhere in that range, on the 23rd.
Okay, so as far as you knew, there had been a great number of police officers and other experts on the scene before you got there.
Yes.
Okay. And but you operated on the assumption that everything had been maintained as best possible in a forum for you to recover evidence.
Yes.
You didn't see any evidence of any third parties or anyone who was involved with the investigation and somehow contaminating the evidence?
Nothing that couldn't be accounted for. So a lot of the times when an officer or officers clear scenes, they're not going to be wearing the personal protective equipment like gloves and masks, but we do have the ability to eliminate their samples if need be, in case there was any contamination at the time.
What about shoe prints or shoes? Anyone walking through the crime scene for whatever reason, would you be able to identify that as being someone from law enforcement as opposed to a potential suspect?
If it is of question, a lot of the times I would recover what's called an exemplar of their shoe impression. So it's a sticky sheet that we would have them stand on, and it would take an impression of their shoes to be compared at the lab later with those comparison photographs that were taken.
But nothing led you to do that in this case?
No.
Okay. Let me ask you this. You, during the course of your examination, it appears we're focusing on red stains or possible blood stains. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So in terms of fingerprints, did you have any role in either uncovering or recovering any items or preserving them for possible fingerprint matches with a suspect or anybody else?
None of the items that I recovered would have been optimal for fingerprint recovery, and fingerprint is a different discipline of forensics.
So had you come across an item or a surface that you thought might be productive in uncovering fingerprints, would you have done that, or would it have been done by a separate expert?
Done by a separate expert. I could recommend, say, this is a good surface for you to fingerprint. I left it for you, because if I ran a swab over it, it would destroy a fingerprint. So I let them know, I did not touch this. You're free to process it, but I don't actually do the fingerprints.
Did you have any direct contact with someone whose specialty was recovering or comparing fingerprints?
At this crime scene, no.
Let me, there were a few exhibits that were shown to you, and let me show them to you again if I can. These are all Exhibit 7.
Bless you.
Let's start with the lowest number. You see that?
Yes.
It's not the whole picture, but
I'm sorry, which exhibit are we talking
I'm
about?
sorry. This is People's Exhibit 7, item 17. This was shown to you previously. Can you see it on the screen?
Yes.
Okay. I believe you were asked about two items here. One was this item down there. That little item there, do you see what that is?
That is the breaker box.
Okay, that's the breaker box that you previously discussed. Is that correct?
Yes.
And then the item above it, above the cabinet, could you describe that again, what you saw?
It was loose cables that were not connected to anything.
And you said they appear to be part of their surveillance system, is that right?
Consistent with what I've seen in the past for the types of plugs that would plug into like the housing, I guess you would call it.
Okay. Let me show you then another exhibit from number 7, and this is exhibit 20. I think we're gonna, exhibit 7, item 20. I think we ought to change the focus on this. I'm gonna mess this up, I'm sure. There we go. So again, looking at this, and there appears to be 2 photographs here. One appears to be, again, the loose cables and wires you just discussed, is that right?
Yes.
And then here again is the breaker box, is that correct?
Yes.
And then finally, exhibit 7, item number 21, is that a close-up of the breaker box?
Yes.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, when you were discussing that, you didn't find any blood or red stains on either of those 2 items, is that correct?
Correct.
But you did say, or correct me if I'm wrong, that the breaker box, perhaps the outside, might be right for, lack of a better word, fingerprints?
Yes.
And do you know whether or not the breaker box was ever examined for possible fingerprints?
I don't know.
Did you request or make it known that you thought that surface might be productive in possibly finding prints?
I communicated it to the detectives that I was leaving it for latent prints as it was a better surface for them, but I can't dictate what happens with any other. It's not my case.
Okay.
So I can only give recommendations. I can't control any part of that, and I didn't have direct contact with the latent print examiner.
And whether or not there was a follow-up on that, you have no idea at this time?
No.
You wouldn't be part of that?
No.
Were there any other surfaces that you came across during the course of your very thorough examination, it sounds like, that you thought might be ripe for possible fingerprints?
There was a few, yes.
Can you tell us what they were, if you recall?
The kitchen faucet handle, I focused on where the red stains were, but it is a very smooth surface that would be a good place for fingerprints. The safe, how it was a mirror, though I didn't see any red stains, it could have possibly been fingerprinted as well as a target point.
Well, let me stop you right there, and if you recall something else, please let me know. So the safe itself, you examined for possible red stains, is that correct?
Yes.
And you had followed a trail of red stains from the first floor hallway and kitchen area, backyard, into the master bedroom, is that right?
Yes.
And found, I believe, a few small stains in the master bedroom?
There were 3, 4, less than 10 red stains in there.
And can you refresh my memory approximately what they were on, what surfaces?
There was one that was on the top of the vanity that led to the hallway, and there was one on the drawer of that vanity as well. I'm sorry, door, cabinet door. And then on the dresser, there was the staining that was on the top drawer, and then on a door of the dresser as well. And then it was like a fossil jewelry bag. There was some red stains on that as well that was in the room. And the 2 pillowcases had some red stains as well.
And you said, I believe, for lack of a better word, that the room looked like it had been ransacked. Is that correct?
It did appear as though it was not how somebody intended to leave it.
But one of the things that you did look at closely would be the safe area. Is that right?
Yes.
And could you describe again how the safe area was situated? And you mentioned a glass mirror or something like that. Could you describe it in detail as best you recall?
As you walk into the master bedroom closet, the door would open inwards towards the left. And if you shut that door behind where it had opened, that would be where it looked like a full-length mirror almost would be. And that area was the safe. If you flip the mirror out, there's the safe.
Was the safe open or closed?
Closed.
And again, any red stains anywhere on the safe, near the safe, in the vicinity of the safe?
No.
And again, you don't know if it was printed or not.
No.
You also testified to examining a pair of shoes. Is that right? Or recovering stains from a pair of shoes?
Yes.
Okay. You didn't do the comparisons of any of these items, DNA, blood, touch, whatever. You just recovered the items to be compared later.
Correct.
Right? Okay. Regarding those shoes, you found some blood stains on them. Is that right?
There was red stains on them, yes.
Okay. And you learned later that the shoes belonged to one of the daughters.
Yes.
Okay. So it seemed clear to you that perhaps the daughter who unfortunately had to discover the body may have walked through some of the red stains on the floor. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Were you directed to examine any other shoes or shoe by law enforcement other than the pair belonging to the daughters?
Any shoes that were visible, I looked at the soles of them to see if there was red stains. So there was extra shoes also outside of that kitchen door. So in addition to the boots that I recovered, there was, they might have been Vans. I looked at those soles. When I looked in the master bedroom closet, I didn't see any red stains on any of the soles of those shoes. But I didn't dig through every closet in the house to find all the shoes that could have been there.
Sure, but going back to the shoes that were in the kitchen area, that was the crime scene basically, correct?
Yes.
Did you determine whose shoes they belonged to?
The ones that were left outside?
Not yet, other than the daughter's shoes.
No.
Okay. But you examined them and there was no blood or red stains on them?
Correct.
So is it fair to say that other than the daughter's shoes, you did not recover blood from any other shoe or shoes that you saw at the crime scene, correct?
Correct.
And it was your impression that the crime scene had been kept as untouched as possible for your examination,
Yes.
correct? You also said that the television was on, is that right?
Yes.
That's in the living room?
Yes.
Do you recall what was on?
No.
Okay. Do you know whether or not it was on when it was first observed by law enforcement or the first people on the scene?
I know that it was on when I arrived, and no one told me that they turned it on, and that's as much as I know.
So you assumed that it was on when the crime took place, or at that time?
It was my understanding, yes.
Okay. But you, well, let me ask you this. Did you examine the television itself?
I looked.
Any possible evidence? I'm sorry.
Yes, I looked at the remote and the television area, and I did not see any red stains in that area.
And again, were there any surfaces of the television itself that you thought were ripe for fingerprints?
Anything that's flat and smooth is a really good surface for fingerprints.
And was it black and smooth?
Yeah, it was a flat screen TV.
Okay. Did you point that out to other law enforcement who were present, that it might be a possible source of evidence?
I wouldn't feel the need to do any of that. The latent print examiner, they also are trained in doing crime scene recovery and evidence recovery. The only time that I would really communicate is if they would come in and there's a possibility that if I already collected swabs from that area, I would have obliterated the latent print. So in the case that we call it split evidence, so the case of the breaker box, they would not have known one way or the other if I had swabbed the breaker box, thereby destroying any fingerprints. So I communicate the split evidence in what I collected and what I didn't. And then the latent print examiner, who is also trained, would utilize their training to collect any sort of latent print from other surfaces. So because I would have no need to swab the TV, I did not feel the need to communicate that it's a good place for prints because they know it's a good recovery point for prints.
let me ask you this then. To your knowledge, was there a print expert on the scene, at least at any time you were there, to work with you or in conjunction with you and examine any of the items for possible prints?
I'm going to object. It's been asked and answered twice now.
I don't believe so.
Normally on crime scenes, the latent print examiner goes after us. The powder tends to overwhelm anything that it goes onto. So we collect our evidence and then the latent print examiner would follow. So I would say the majority of my crime scenes, I never interacted with a latent print examiner. So this is no different. I did not interact with one and I don't know if they came.
Okay, so I'll take that as a no. You didn't see any latent print expert at the scene?
No.
And you were not notified afterwards whether or not any latent prints were recovered?
No.
Okay. Can I have 1 minute, Your Honor? Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Anything further on other people?
I have 1 moment, Your Honor. No, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hawk. You're excused.
Thank you very much.
May I call your next witness?
Thank you. We'll call Detective Ryan Bernabach.